Hi boys, we are going to meet the fourth and fifth declensions today. It is table time, but it's dead straightforward. There's just a few little bits that we need to point out. Now I've sent you a copy of this table for you to fill in. You can either fill it in based on my scruffy writing here, or it's also in page 123 of the textbook at the bottom. Okay, so on the left hand side we have manus, which is an example of the fourth declension, and on the right hand side we have dies, which is an example of the fifth declension. The first thing to note is that both declensions could have either gender in them. So for example, manus is a feminine noun, dies is a masculine noun, but that doesn't mean that all fourth declension nouns are feminine and all fifth declension ones are masculine. There can be a variety in both. It shouldn't be something to worry about too much, but just so that you know. On the right-hand side of this table are the 6 nouns that you need to know for GCSE, which belong to the fourth or the fifth declension. So the ones on the left-hand side here are obviously the fourth declension nouns that you need to know for GCSE. So manus, which means hand or band of men, domus, which means house or home, and exercitus, which means army. On the right-hand side, you have the nouns you need to know which belong to the fifth declension. So this is dies, which means day, res, which means, well, it means thing, but it can mean a lot of different things depending on the context. And then spes, which means hope. Okay, so those 6 nouns you need to remember as the fourth and fifth declension nouns that could be met in your GCSE unseen. So let's talk about some of these endings. If we have a look at the fourth declension, it's quite weird because you have this ending us several times. So you have us as the nominative singular, us as the genitive singular, and then also us as the nominative and accusative plural. What this means is you're going to see the word manus, and it could be nominative or genitive singular or nominative and accusative plural. So as always with these things, you've got to think about the context. The other endings of the fourth declension are quite straightforward. So the accusative ends in M. The dative and the ablative are a little bit weird, but at least there's only one of a kind, manui and manu for the dative and the ablative. And then the genitive, dative and ablative plurals are fairly straightforward. Manuum, we've seen as a genitive plural ending before, and manibus, manibus, which is pretty normal. So just bearing in mind this ending us, obviously a little bit of a strange one. So say we were met with a sentence that had the word manus in it, you would have to, as I said, think about the context. So let's look at this example. We've got hic servus, this slave, habet, has, and then we can see that magnas is next to manus. Magnas is going to be agreeing with manus because it's feminine, and we know the word manus is feminine. And as on the end is an accusative plural ending of the first declension. So that must mean that manus is also accusative plural, which makes sense because it's this one here. So this slave has big hands. Okay. So that manus there, unlikely to be the nominative because it's not at the start of the sentence. So that's knocking out already the nominative singular and the nominative plural. So then we have to decide, right, well, is it genitive or is it accusative plural? And here it is accusative plural. But watch out for that one because it can catch you out and it is a weird ending. Okay. Just a heads up, I should have said this earlier, make sure that you are taking notes at this point, boys. So you've filled in your table, you've stuck that in. If you don't have a printer, then you're going to have to write out the table. And you've written out these 6 nouns that we need to learn as fourth and fifth declension, and also this example sentence. So pause if you need to, but carrying on. A couple of little things that we just need to mention. So I've written nota bene and then the words domo and domi. The reason that I've done this is domo is from domos, obviously, and as we've said before, domos is a fourth declension noun. But for some reason, don't ask me why, domo is the ablative singular of domos. just like a normal second declension noun. For some reason, you'd expect it to be domu, because that's what the fourth declension ablative is, but this one breaks the rules. Domi isn't a genitive or anything like that. All the other endings of domos are totally normal and go just like manos up here. But domi is a locative. We don't learn the locative fully at GCSE, but you just need to learn this particular word, domi, and translate it as at home, because that's what the locative means. It's describing the place where someone or something is. So domi just means at home. So those are just kind of two little annoying things that you need to make a note of and remember, that domo instead of domu is the ablative just for that noun. No other rule breakers like that for any other nouns. And domi is the locative meaning at home. Final thing, which is probably the trickiest thing about fourth and fifth declension nouns, is that although you only meet those 6 for GCSE, there may well be words in your unseen translation that are fourth or fifth declension that you haven't learnt in the vocab. That means that they will give you the meaning of them at the bottom, obviously. But for example, say you've met the word gradus in a translation. It's not on the GCSE vocab list. You haven't learned what it means. Just FYI, it means footstep. So they've given you this word in a story, and they've put it at the bottom of the story and told you that it means footstep. Not only do you need to be able to remember that that means footstep in order to translate it, you also need to think about the information that they've given you in the vocab. Remember, when you're given a noun in a vocab list, you will always be given the nominative and then the genitive. So if they've given you the nominative and then the genitive, and the genitive ends in us, that tells you, going back to this table, that it's a fourth declension noun. Okay, so what that means is, if you're given the word and you're given its meaning, you still need to look at that piece of information, look at that genitive and go, right, it's fourth declension. So that means if it's in the form of gradus, then it could be nominative singular, genitive singular, nominative plural, or accusative plural. Okay, so watch out for that. And it's the same situation with fifth declension nouns. They might give you a word that you haven't learnt, just like they did with gradus. So I've given the example here of akiez, which means battle line. But as I said, this isn't on the vocab list. So they give it to you in the story, and they give you the nominative as they do with any noun, and they give you the genitive as they do with any noun. And the genitive, ae, is the same as the genitive here, dae, okay? So you need to look at that information and think, right, well, that's the genitive of the fifth declension. So I'm dealing with a fifth declension noun here. So I need to therefore check its ending and compare it to fifth declension endings, okay? The fifth declension is kind of easier to spot because it's a little bit weird, whereas the fourth declension is really easy to confuse, obviously, with the second declension, because you just think us, right, nominative singular, dominus, servus, all that stuff. But it's not. So you really do need to watch out for, if I'm told that the genitive ends in us, I'm not dealing with the second declension anymore, I'm dealing with the fourth declension. Okay. So those are a few of the little bits and pieces of information that you need to know about the fourth and fifth declension. So it's not too complicated, just a few little things to remember. And obviously the main thing is to have that table with those endings in. If you prefer just to write the endings and not the full words, that's fine. Whatever makes it stick best in your mind. And now it is going to be a case of learning those endings off by heart. It is annoying, I do realise that there are only 6 nouns and you still have to learn 2 new sets of endings. But it's all good. Knowledge is power, especially when it's knowledge of declensions of obscure ancient languages. Okay, let's do some practice. So turn to page 125 and have a look at exercise 10.5. I'm going to pop it here as well. Right, okay, so we're not having a look at number 1 because we've already done that when we were practicing purpose clauses. So just straight into number 2. Have a look at the sentence, have a go, pause the video and press play when you're ready. Okay, so number 2, the fifth declension noun is re, from res, so that's the ablative. right there. So the translation of this whole sentence then is the senators were speaking, deponent verb, about the very serious matter or thing. Okay. Number 3, pause and have a go. Okay, so exercitum is the fourth declension noun here, and it's accusative. Quis is who. Who was leading the Roman army then? Okay, number 4, pause the video and have a go. Okay, so the fifth declension noun here is spem, and that's just an accusative. So the translation is this victory gives hope of peace to us. Nobis being the dative there. Okay, number 5. Have a go and then press play. Okay, so number 5 tests your understanding of domi as the locative, meaning at home. Okay, so remember when we have altera, it's one person did something, the other did another. So the translation here is one girl wanted to go to Rome, the other preferred to stay at home. Okay, so there's your locative, domi, at home. I have translated those imperfects as if they're perfect tense because it just sounds nicer in English. If you've forgotten about that altera, you need to go back and look at that word because we did it recently. It's one of the pronouns at the back of the textbook. Okay, number 6, pause the video and have a go. Okay, so this one, we have manum here, which is the accusative, and it looks weird because it's next to magnam. Magnam looks feminine, manum looks masculine, but remember manum is in fact feminine. Okay, don't translate any of that first though because it's accusative. So we found a large band of prisoners in the camp. It's not going to be hand because that wouldn't make any sense. So if you have translated it as hand, yes, it can mean hand, but think about it logically. You will lose marks if you don't make your translations logical. Okay, number 7, have a go at that one and then press play. Okay, so here we've got diebus, the 5th declension noun, looking very ablative because multis post diebus with those 2 ablatives, and the post in the middle is a common idiom. So the ships were able to sail after many days is your translation there. Number 8, have a go at that one. Okay, so here we've got manu, 4th declension, ablative. What are you holding in your hand? Oops, sorry, slave. There we go. Okay, so tenes, watch out for that, ends in S, so it's a U verb. Okay, have a go at number 9. Okay, so this time we've got rebus, the ablative, 5th declension. So the whole translation is this slave girl was loyal in all matters. Okay, and then the final one, number 10. Have a go at that one. Sneakiest one here. Okay, so exercitus is your 4th declension. Could it be nominative? No, because dux is the nominative, so it's going to be genitive this time. So the leader of the army. Think about it, it's what makes most sense. In fact, the leader of nostri, of our army. Nostri is also genitive. Set out on the next day from the city. Nice. Any questions? Let me know.